Hello, everybody. I'm trying to make Instagram go live at the same time. It's a tricky business. I'm taking over Talk to the Entity's social media. I have been given permission, so this is very exciting. Now I'm going to go live on Instagram as well. There we go. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram on all of the Talk to the Entity's social media pages. I am the lucky one who gets to go first. Shannon did a social media Talk to the Entities invitation last week, and it was incredible. And every week we're going to have a facilitator, a certified Talk to the Entities facilitator, go live on these platforms to talk about their story, their favorite tools. You know, everyone's so different. This is the great, amazing thing with all of the facilitators of Access Consciousness and Talk to the Entities is everybody is so fucking different, and they have such a different story, came from completely different places, but they get they have this desire, most of them, okay, I'm not going to generalize about that too much, but a desire for something different and greater and for more consciousness, essentially. And everybody's different. We all choose it differently, we all perceive it differently, and this is the beauty of consciousness. Consciousness includes everything and judges nothing. So, you guys, we're going to have about 20 minutes or something like that, and I'm going to talk about from the very beginning with my Talk to the Entities journey, which is probably different to most people because I didn't actually... Okay, I started Access Consciousness after doing 10 plus years of all sorts of different stuff. I started naturopathy, I was into health, and I did like men's festivals and men's and women's festivals where you get together for a weekend and do all these different workshops and stuff. And, you know, there's like, on some workshops, you beat pillows and express your anger and do all the stuff, and a lot of new age stuff I did. And it was great. I learned a lot of stuff. I got to change some stuff. But it wasn't until Access Consciousness, when I started there, that like this incredible light bulb came on for me with what's possible. No one ever had talked to me about choice or even that judgment exists, like this thing of right and wrong that was so enmeshed in my whole reality. And when I heard that, I was like, wow, this is different. A year later, after I came across Access Consciousness, I went to a level 2 and 3 class, which was then the COP and is now the CFP, with Gary Douglas in Noosa, Queensland, Australia. And I met Shannon there. And yeah, we kind of like met each other, and it was awesome, got along, and I was still married at the time, and had 2 kids with my previous wife. And I'm going to skip some of the details there because, you know, it can be a very in-depth story, but it doesn't need to be for this. I was interested in Shannon, basically, and my relationship wasn't working for several years with my previous partner. And she invited me to some Talk to the Entities classes, you know, over the next while. And for me, I was interested in Shannon, right? I wasn't like, I'm aware of entities and I need to know more about this. But what I loved from those classes is the empowering nature and how it really got me to know what I know in all of these areas of my life. And it wasn't until about the 3rd Talk to the Entities class that I did with Shannon where she mentioned this thing about entity signs and symptoms during the class, being like paranoia, feeling like the worst person in the world, like this sense of wanting to retract away from everything. And this has been something that was so familiar to me, and I had like done all my life to varying degrees, you know. And after she mentioned this during this day of the 3rd class that I'd taken with her. And I don't mean like the 3rd session of a class, I mean like literally the 3rd beginning class. I'm slow. Lucky I'm cute. So essentially, hi.
I don't see it on the...
It should be live on Instagram. It says it's live here.
But it isn't.
Oh, so maybe I'm not live on Instagram. We'll have to sort that out, but we can put the recording on Instagram afterwards. But we're live on YouTube and Facebook at least.
Oh, okay.
So after I was riding home on my bike at the end of the day of this class, right? And she mentioned during the day about these particular signs, because everybody has different signs of entity awareness. And I was totally happy riding the bike. And then suddenly, like all of this, like my whole universe started collapsing, and I felt like, oh wow, something bad's going to happen, and like I'm the worst person in the world. And then I remembered, oh, she mentioned this during the day as like an entity sign. So I was like, okay, why not? I'll use the tool. So I cleared entities, and immediately I used the entity clearing tools, and immediately like this, I felt happy again. Like this completely shifted. This had never occurred in my whole entire life. I could sort of try and cope with it, and then it would get like a little bit better. But generally I just still had that same sense like around me and all of the time. But immediately like it completely changed. And I was like, oh wow. This is the only thing that I could ever have applied to change this energy that I was aware of constantly. So I was like, so maybe I'm aware of entities. And a number of more times this happened, right? Like I was aware of this incredible gloom and compression of space, and I would clear entities and it would shift. And that's how I started recognizing for me at the very beginning that I was actually aware of entities. So I didn't see them with my eyes. I didn't hear them with my ears. None of the things that we generally tend to think, that's how you're aware of entities, somewhere through your 5 senses. This is a very psychological thing for me, and very specific. And just to reiterate, like entity signs, like entity awareness signs can show up so different for everybody. For some people, they might be more physical things. For other people, it might be like just a knowing, there's a ghost there, and there's like, no, it just is. You don't have to prove it. You don't have to justify it, anything like that. You just know. So that's how I first knew for me that I was aware of entities. Okay. So I wonder for you guys, like what have you always been aware of that you've never actually related to being aware of entities? But if you applied some of the entity tools, which some of the very basic ones exist in the the Access Foundation Manual, one of the first classes you'll ever do. There's a set of entity clearing tools in there. So what if you just applied the clearing tools? And actually, even on this YouTube channel, the Talk to Entities YouTube channel, there's about like the Talk to the Entities entity clearings. You'll see a bunch of videos about that and how to actually utilize those. So what if you just tried that and see if the energy shifts? Because there is nobody that can validate your entity awareness for you. It's something that you need to discover and find, how does this show up for me with your unique entity signs, your unique entity awareness and capacities that you have. How do I know that I'm aware of entities? None of that has anything to do with your mind. Like I said before, it's not about reasons or justifications or somehow proving that you're aware of entities. When you really know something, there is no requirement of proving it, and there is no reasons or justifications to try and back it up. Okay, that's how you know. So you have to basically reach and explore and find out. It's like stepping into this whole new world. If you've never really stepped into that world, like I hadn't, stepping step by step and discovering, and then you become more capable, essentially, and of dealing with entities and having access to that possibility. Awesome. So that's how I started Talk to the Entities. And then some years after that, after using the tools and practicing and doing like all of the classes basically with Shannon and I became a talk to the entities facilitator as well. And then that was this other step in my journey of discovering more and more. When you facilitate access consciousness or talk to the entities, it's like this whole other discovery and claiming of what you know. Okay. And you start stepping into being the tools in a way that you might not have beforehand. So that's a real gift in itself. What else? I'm thinking of like what my favorite tool is, my favorite talk to the entities tool, and that's tough. Because I've had so many of them, like the demon clearing, the clearing tools, some of the communication, or a lot of the communication tools, downloading. There's so many of them that have been so relevant to me and have created such a incredible either energetic shift or access to more energy that it's hard to like narrow it down. I've spoken about clearing already. So let me say a little bit more about that. Oh, there's this one experience and awareness that I had at this one point, which was like a number of years after I became a talk to the entities facilitator. I was in Houston. I was walking across a large street because in America, the roads are very, very wide, many lanes. There's a lot of concrete in America for cars and a lot of space. So I was walking across like a 4-lane road. There was no cars there. I was just like strolling across. I think I just went to a video store to buy like a piece of equipment or something. And then I was going to get like an Uber somewhere, you know, very inane, everyday stuff. And I had this sensation of like a bit of a pressure. And for me, that was a lot more subtle than the example that I gave beforehand when I first became awareness, where it was like all these different things and I felt like shit and so forth. That was sort of like the kind of like the sledgehammer of awareness that I needed at the time to get that I was aware of entities. Once I'd sort of stepped through a lot of that awareness and claimed my awareness and how that shows up for me, it was a lot more of a feather touch, right? So I was walking across the street, everything was great. And then I was like, I had this feather touch and I was like, oh, is that, that's like what I knew was entities. I was like, oh, entities, cool. So I started clearing entities just in my head, walking across the street. And I noticed a shift of energy into more lightness. And after that, I noticed this rush of like gratitude in my universe. And I realized how incredibly healing me doing a simple thing like clearing entities, and I'll tell you more about that in a second, how that shows up, is this incredible gratitude for that contribution of me engaging with the spirit world and clearing entities. Because what occurs when you're clearing entities is that you're acknowledging that the entities are there. You're like, who are you? So you're connecting with them, engaging, you're acknowledging their existence. So many people don't acknowledge entities even exist. So the entities are usually trying to like deal with this whole thing of they want to communicate, if they desire to communicate to either certain people or handle something with someone, with a body, then they usually get this wall and, you know, unacknowledgement. So first, when you're like, who are you? You're engaging with that, with them, whether it's a group of entities or a single entity. First and foremost, that is an acknowledgement that they are there, okay? And then the second part of the clearing process is, who were you before that? So you've identified them, who are you? And now you're going, who were you before that? Before you had that set of identifications and that energetic definition, who were you before that? 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 You're showing them that they've had all of these different lifetimes, all of these different identifications, all of these different identities. And so it gets them to realize, oh, I've had all of these other lifetimes. I'm not just stuck in this particular identity. And then after that, once you notice the energy shift, you say, and who will you be in the future? Essentially, what choice would you like to make now? This is the identification that you identify with now. You've had all of these other ones. What about now? What will you choose now? You're facilitating them to choice, that they're not stuck in a particular identification. You have choice. And through that incredibly simple but powerful process that I engaged with walking across the street in my everyday, regular life, the entities were so grateful for me facilitating that and for choice, right? And really that's what consciousness is. If you're facilitating consciousness, you're facilitating beings and energies to choice. Okay? You're not saying this is the right thing to choose, this is the wrong to choose, you should choose the right thing. No, that's not consciousness, because it's not including everything. You're like, hey, you have choice? What would you like to choose? Because we're all so different. We all desire different things. And we have different capacities. So the true gift is like what if everybody was willing to be themselves totally, including all of the entities, and wasn't projected and expected to be something else and to show up different and to not be something and to like all of the stuff that we experience so often. What if that space for choice and for possibilities was available to every being? What kind of a world would that be? And this really is the ask of Shannon and my wife and the founder of Talk to the Entities. What if all beings were included and none were judged? No matter how weird or different or whatever it was, what would be possible then? And that's this real inspiration of what Talk to the Entities is. So the Talk to the Entities beginning class, well, the introduction and the beginning class are particularly powerful because they're this real entry step into this universe, where the beginning class, you receive a manual with all of the basic tools in it. A lot of you guys that are on this Facebook, YouTube, maybe Instagram Live, you might have done a beginning class already. So you have like this thick manual, and you can refer to that all of the time whenever you're working through stuff to get your bearings and your grounding with like, okay, here's the tools. And the other cool thing is that I always say to my beginning class participants is the tools that are in the manual and the way that it's discussed in the manual, this kind of like a crutch. You get to use that crutch to begin, but then after a while, once you know them, then you can start expanding out to more awareness and engage more freestyle with the spirit world. But those tools are incredibly important to begin with to navigate how things work for you. And speaking of the introduction, I just want to mention that Shannon has one on the 27th of April this month, online. So all over the world, wherever you are, if you want to get a taste of Talk to the Entities, a bit of a deeper taste. This is a taste, but it's more of like here's my experience and my perspective on this. If you want to get a taste of the tools and like some of the classes Shannon's doing, the pardon me, Talk to the Entities introduction, 27th of this month, April, 2 p.m. CET. So if you go to talktotheentities.com, check out the events and find that introduction. It's awesome. And the thing is, introduction is not a great title for it because it's never really an introduction. It's you get a full-on experience for the 2 hours of what Talk to the Entities is. There's no nothing's getting held back, basically. You're just getting what's possible to give in 2 hours. And Shannon is extremely generous with the energies and the possibilities and just all of it. You'll get all of it, basically. But then if you do want to get really through all of the tools and so forth, then the beginning class is incredible for that. And there is almost 200 Talk to the Entities facilitators all across the world that facilitate the beginning class. So there's a lot of choices, because every facilitator is different. If you're looking for a beginning class, look at the energy of what will my life be like in 5 years? Be like in 5 years if I choose this beginning class with this facilitator? What will my life be like in 5 years if I choose a beginning class with this facilitator? And if you follow the energy, you'll get very clear feedback about which one is the most expansive for you. Okay. It might be a little weird if they're facilitating it in a different language, but you could always reach out to them and ask if it'll be translated into your language, because there's a lot of amazing translators around too. Cool. Oh, I forgot to look at the comments over here that we get over here. Hello, everybody. We've got people from Luxembourg, from the UK. I'm in the UK. Slovenia, Holland. Amazing. Yeah. Thank you guys for being on here. And going by some of the other names, I assume India. But, you know, Indians are all over the world, so you could be living anywhere. Speaking of India, that's an incredibly entity-rich place, let's say. Berlin. Thank you, Astrid. I've been to India a number of times over the years, and it's incredible. It is like, if you're looking for a study in extremes, go to India. That is like the the lifestyle version of extremes. And also with entities, like they have a very specific entity reality. Like all cultures have this entity reality that is so different. For example, I grew up in Australia, but I was born in Germany, and my family is all from Germany and so forth. So that reality, which is kind of like disregarding of entities, like, no, of course that doesn't exist, it's not like logical enough, is completely different to the reality in India, where they actually like acknowledge their ancestors, but they're always wanting to please their ancestors and are sort of trapped in their all of the expectations from the ancestral line. So that's this whole other different weird thing. And the Talk of the Entities tools allow us to deal with all of these different things to get to greater choice for you, for the entities, for anyone that's interested, essentially. Incredibly empowering. There's another question here. What's the date again for the introduction? It's the 27th of April in Europe. Okay, so 2 p.m. CET introduction, Talk to the Entities introduction with Shannon, 27th of April in Europe. So it might be a bit of a different date for, depending on where you are in the world. We've got someone from Mississippi in the USA and from Russia. Yes, love it. Consciousness is available everywhere, you know. So cool. Like all the stuff that we see going on, you know, that tries to create separation with the different countries and all of the insane stuff that's going on, but there is incredible people all over the place. And this is something I've recognized through Access and all the different classes and the people that show up. There is incredible humanoids all over the world that desire something different, and it has like nothing to do with all of the stupid agendas that are there to create separation. So you guys are amazing. Yep, someone else from the Netherlands. Amazing. Cool. So I think that's all we're going to cover today. Next week, I think about the same time. Ellen, is it going to be the same time next week? I can see Ellen on my screen there because she's in StreamYard. Different time. Okay, it's going to be a different time every week, but keep an eye out on Talk to the Entities, social media, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. There's going to be a different Talk to the Entities facilitator going live each week. Check it out. How does it get better? Thank you guys for joining, and I look forward to seeing you somewhere online or around the world very soon. How does it get infinitely better? Ciao, ciao.